There's been a lot of discourse going on right now about Marathon, Bungie's latest extraction shooter that it's set to release on March 5th. Right now, it's running a server slam, which is just an open beta of the game, and a lot of people have gotten a chance to get in and play and give their thoughts on it. I myself have played a decent amount, probably about 8 hours or so, and I wanted to address some things. I wanted to give my thoughts and dispel what I think of as a lot of unnecessary hate or maybe some misunderstandings about what this game is about, at least in my opinion. So to get it right out of the way, I'm pretty biased. Just gonna come out and say it. I like the game already. I think Bungie's doing something very interesting here. And if you don't like the idea of an extraction shooter, you've probably never played one, or you tried Arc Raiders and you didn't like it, you're probably not going to like what this game has to offer, just straight up. I don't think there's any world in which someone who doesn't already like a game like Hunt Showdown or Ark or even Escape from Tarkov is going to like this game. It's hardcore, it can be a bit confusing at times, and it has a pretty divisive art style. That combination is not great. There are things about this game that not everybody's going to like, but I don't think Bungie wants it to be a game for everyone. I'm reminded of a quote from Arrowhead, the developers of Helldivers 2. It basically goes something like, if it's a game for everyone, then it's a game for no one. And I think Bungie is trying to make this game for a very small segment of the population. So with that out of the way, if you already don't like extraction shooters, you can click off this video. I'm not going to do anything to convince you here, nor should you just listen to me. If it interests you, go watch some gameplay, find some streamers with varying opinions, and then inform your decision on if you're going to buy it or not. At the end of the day, it's going to take a bit of investment upfront to learn how to play this type of game anyways, and that's okay for some people, but some people don't like that, and that's totally fair. But there are some criticisms about this game that I think are a bit unfounded, and that's what I want to address today. I'm going to completely skip over any of the technical stuff or server disruptions, things like that. I don't think I have any sort of authority on that, and your mileage is going to vary depending on your platform. I played it on PS5. It's pretty good on PS5. So first, I want to go over the things that I genuinely think should change. The more divisive elements I've seen on the server slam is the user interface. Bungie opted for this very stylized, minimalist, I would even maybe say an artsy aesthetic that prioritizes the cohesive look of the items with the world building. It's visually striking for sure, and I like that. But the choice has introduced some friction into the core gameplay loop of looting and managing your inventory. See, a big part of extraction shooters is figuring out what you should grab and what you should leave behind, especially for quests and leveling up the factions in the game. The main thing is icon clarity. A big complaint from both casual and veteran players that I've seen is the lack of visual distinction between items. Icons have been described as looking like Lego pieces, and I will agree with that. It can be difficult to figure out what you should and shouldn't loot at a glance. I run into it all the time. My inventory is full of stuff where I'm like, do I really even need this? Luckily, the tooltips tell you what each thing is for, and a lot of the items are sold automatically when you extract. Bit of a side note, I've seen some clips of streamers who are saying things like, I don't understand how this works, or what is this for? And it's right in the tooltip in front of them and they didn't read it. So I don't know what to make of that. This just do with that information what you will. There's also a lot of confusion about specific tiers of items. So different tiers of the same item, like a standard versus an enhanced shield, they use the same icon. It forces you to hover over every item in the backpack or loot crate to see the stats, and that slows down the looting process like crazy, especially when the timer's counting down or you have AI or players on you. Any time spent in the menu is a chance to get just completely destroyed, and that part's not very fun. Now, I've seen some people suggest that you can hit a button in the game to change the number at the top of the item to its credit value, and generally higher level items are worth more, so that could be an easy way to figure out what it's worth or if it's better than the one that you're currently using. Some people don't like the menus though, just like all of them, not just the loot menus or the icons, but I don't think it's any worse than Battlefield 6, and those menus are horrific and slow. Fortnites aren't very great either. Arcs are okay, but I don't think it's worse than anything else I've seen lately. That's a whole other video though. I don't want to get too into that. I think one thing that really needs to change about the UI, and it was hampering my enjoyment, it's the map menu. It needs to be overhauled. It really does. We need to be able to move around on the map and zoom in and take a look at the layout of the POIs, or look at something on the map and say, is it like worth exploring that? Like, what even is that on the map? You can't do that right now. Now, the more you play on the maps like Perimeter, which is the first map, it's not so bad because they're not huge POIs. But as we get into the main game and bigger areas, we're really going to need that, I think. Like the end game raid is supposed to be like a really complicated map and really big. That's not going to be fun if we can't actually look at the map. As of right now, all you can do is like scroll around, see your teammates' positions, and ping. Bungie's acknowledged, I don't know if they've acknowledged the map stuff, but Bungie has definitely acknowledged the UI problems, and they recognize that it's overwhelming. There's actually a dedicated feedback thread on their official Discord. I don't think they're going to change everything in the 4 days before launch, but they can do quality of life improvements. It gives me hope that this won't be the case forever. Arc Raiders did the exact same thing. People complained about confusing icons, and I believe they changed them right before launch. I didn't fact check that too hard, but I've heard people talking about that, so it gives me some hope. The next thing I'm going to get to is the heat mechanic. If you haven't played it yet, heat in Marathon is your stamina, but instead of the stamina bar draining like in other games, it builds up when you run, jump, slide, or use abilities. If you hit the heat threshold, so the top of the meter, your shell overheats and you're vulnerable for a short period of time. Vulnerable in that you can't sprint and you're just stuck like walking. It's probably the most survival-focused mechanic in Marathon. And I'm from the days of Tarkov where you had to bring food and water into a raid. This is not that intense, but if you're not used to managing those things in a shooter, you might not like it. And again, like the UI could be overwhelming. The heat system, to me, is genius because it forces you to be a bit slower. Interestingly, when you're in rain or water, the heat doesn't build up as fast. So there's an environmental element to this where if you know the environment that you're going to be in, you can play that to your advantage. I find that it forces me to be slow and listen to the environment more. I can't just sprint into an area, which is not advisable in this game. I definitely know when somebody's sprinting at me because it's just so loud, and you can tell the people who are not thinking about that when they sprint in. And the heat is just a way to reinforce that gameplay that's a bit slow and tactical. It's not like Destiny 2, and it's definitely not like Apex or even Fortnite. Like you really gotta be careful when you're sprinting around. But people who like those games believe it's getting in the way of the fun. They think you should be able to jump around and all that stuff. And maybe they're right. I'm not going to say that it's not fun or would not be fun or not good necessarily. But yeah, I think they chose to implement it this way. And I think it greatly enhances gameplay. Now, there is one class called the Vandal, which is supposed to be all about movement and double jumping and sliding and all this kind of stuff. I haven't played it, but I saw people saying it was the most impeded by the system. So maybe some tweaks would be good there. But this is a big but as well. If you look through the faction upgrades, which are the main upgrades that you get to your shells and your vault that lasts between runs, within like 2 or 3 hours of gameplay, if you upgrade the Cyber Acme tree, you can increase your heat capacity by 20%. Now, I will say the base heat level is restrictive for a reason, but I think Bungie's done a good job of making long-term upgrades feel very meaningful and change how you play the game. So that's all the things that I think could change. I think they could maybe tweak the heat a bit. They definitely could overhaul the UI, and they gotta fix the map. Those are the big things. Now, this is one where I'm really, really torn on. Okay. And it's causing a lot of division online between people in the player base and people who are trying it out or people who are looking in from the outside at this game. Combat is super unforgiving. Pretty much every fight boils down to whoever sees the other players first. You need to really outplay people who get the drop on you to turn a fight. It reminds me of Escape from Tarkov. Somebody looks in your direction and you die, and you sometimes don't even know where you died from. Personally, I like this because as a solo player, you can swing a fight and wipe a team. That said, people who get wiped by a solo might not feel so good about it, and it's much more lethal than Arc Raiders. I'd say it's more similar to Hunt Showdown in that way. So there are people who are not liking how fast the combat is. They're over, like fights are over in a couple of seconds. Anything longer than like a minute, I don't know how you would do it unless you were like running away and hiding and then like re-engaging at a different point. So here's where I think the balance comes in on Bungie's part. Sound plays heavily into the combat. Like in Hunt, you're going to be listening for birds, chains hanging from ceilings that people walk through, how people's footsteps sound on wood versus dirt or in water, or if they're inside or outside, if the sounds are above or below you. I understand why people might not like how lethal the combat is, because, it sometimes doesn't feel good to get snuck up on and just like absolutely rolled and you have no way to react. I think there's something they could do to tweak. I think in the alphas, people were complaining about the time to kill being too long. So I think maybe this is just too much of a course correction. Maybe Bungie will change that. But like I said, the balance here is being aware of your surroundings and listening, just like slowing down for a second and waiting, checking your corners. All of these things force you to be more tactical. And I think that is what balances out this lethality. The lethality is a lot, 100%. But I think if you go into this game with the mindset that you're playing a game of hide and seek and you need to just be mostly quiet until you have to be loud, I think you're going to have a better time. Just my opinion, though. I can understand why people might not like it, though. Some people also pointed out that healing is very annoying. You have to carry shield chargers and patch kits for shields and health, respectively. For some, it's not as simple as just like using one healing item, but Arc Raiders has a shield and health item, so I don't think it's that different. But if you're coming from Destiny and you're like, why do I have to heal myself? Like my shields just don't automatically recharge. Like it can be a bit challenging for sure. Now, another part of the combat that I think is pretty well tuned right now is the UESC security forces. They're the main AI threats, and they're pretty dangerous if you don't respect them. They're on par with enemies from Destiny. Fallen dregs or hive knights are things that come to mind when I see them running around or chasing me. They're smart enough to chase you and flow through buildings, and you can outsmart them with some smoke or by going invisible as the assassin. They're really just there to drain your resources, though, and make you a loud target for other players. So I see a lot of people complaining about them either being too easy or too difficult, and I think they kind of miss the point that you're probably not supposed to kill everything. That's just not the name of the game. They do drop some good items, and if you have to fight them for a quest, like, yeah, fight them. But generally, they're there to challenge you to work through the environment in a way that you're not causing too much noise, and you can stab them with your knife. Like, don't forget that. Anyways, I think Bungie struck a good balance in combat, lethality, and the tactics that you need. You have to have map awareness, you have to have smart positioning, and you need to be just ready to run away. You don't have to take every fight. And I think that's just like a mindset thing. I have done many engagements as Rook where I have run into a team of 3 people and had to run away. There's just no way that, like, if the combat scenario that you're in is like unfavorable to you, like you can just run away. You don't need to fight. And I think that is an interesting decision to make in these games, because other battle royales, you can slug it out for minutes in a fight. Fortnite is exactly like that. Like, you really can fight for a long time. You can take sustained fights, especially when 2 people who are really good at the game go against each other. Marathon is not like that. But if you don't like the combat, it's going to be really hard to like the rest of the game, because it is all combat. And based on the way the time to kill is right now, I can't suggest it to the majority of my friends. I think it's going to be frustrating for them, and I don't want them to, have a bad time playing with me. I've seen people calling for a PvE only mode, but I don't think that is a good idea. If they absolutely have to, there are some things you could do to alleviate the stress for new players. You could lock PvP behind a level or having map modifiers with fewer players, but I don't think they should take out the main PvPvE loop. Try to say that 10 times fast. If they do that, the game is going to die. It won't set itself apart from anything else that's on the market, and I don't think there's actually a player base for this hypothetical game. You could point to Helldivers or Deep Rock Galactic as good PvE games, but those are match-based. They are not based on any sort of loot or extracting items. It's just not going to work. They'd have to take out the inventory system and the item system. It would just be like, there'd be no distinction. And I think it goes against the core of what Bungie's doing. They're on the record as saying the whole point of this game is to create tension within the player, between players, between the player and the environment. and it does a really good job of that. So here's my argument for this game. They've done a very good job of creating an extraction shooter roguelite. That's a lot of keywords. Let me explain though. The way you get more consistent loot and make your shells more powerful is by completing tasks for factions. Cyber Acme, New Caloric, Traxxas, Mida, and Arachne. Each focuses on something different, like selling you utilities, upgrading your heat, like I mentioned, giving you free shields, or unlocking powerful weapons. Those upgrades are permanent for the season. Add on top of that, the contract progression carries through from raid to raid. So even if you take a contract from Cyber Acme to kill 10 UESC units, you can go in and kill 6 and die, not extract, lose all your stuff, but the progress carries over, and that is where this game's brilliance shines. You don't need to force players to do everything in one run. Maybe some contracts might require it, but the fact that you can die and it's not devastating because you haven't lost everything is so smart. So it incentivizes you to level up the factions, and as you level them up, you get stronger. That is something Arc Raiders does not do, and while Tarkov has a reputation system, it's nothing like this. That's why I think it's more of a roguelite than an arena shooter or battle royale. There's meaningful progression every time you go in. It doesn't matter if you lose that purple gun. As long as you complete the mission, you're getting benefits. In my opinion, that is what makes this so much different from everything else and what's going to give it legs over time. Death in this game is inevitable, but it's not a punishment. There are other things I could touch on, like the item economy or weird loot values, but those can be tweaked season to season. I think Bungie has great bones here. I don't think it's going to be liked by everybody, but it's intense in a way that few other games are, and I think there's a market for that. I really do. I believe in this. If anything I've said here is interesting to you, go check out the Server Slam, and then you can make your own decision on buying it, and you can join in on the fun. It's a ton of fun. And if you liked this video and you want to hear more about Marathon or, other content like that, subscribe. As you can see, if you look through my video history, I don't really know what I'm doing with this channel. I don't upload frequently enough, but this game has piqued my interest enough that I kind of want to make some content for it. So if you want to see more of that, leave a comment, leave a like, maybe subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.